I'm Kashina Ashanta Warren, a doctoral student of social work at the University of Southern California. I am also a frontline public benefits worker in the Department of Employment and Benefits Services. I work in a system designed to connect families to food, healthcare, employment support, and stability. I also come to this topic as a caregiver who has had to navigate the same kind of system disruption I see clients experience. Today, I want to talk about a problem that is hiding in plain sight. The safety net has a cognitive overload problem. A child in my care qualified for help, but during a routine benefits transition, the support did not move with him. He had not suddenly become ineligible. His need had not disappeared. The system simply did not move as quickly as the need for care. Within 1 week, a paperwork problem became a health crisis. I work inside public benefits, so I understand some of the language. I know what an eligibility determination is. I know that notices, transfers, documents, and deadlines matter. So I know enough to ask the right questions. And still, the process was hard. So I kept thinking about families who do not work inside the system, families who cannot take time away from work, who do not have reliable internet, who are caring for children, aging parents, or someone with a disability, families who speak another language, who are already one missed paycheck, one missed notice, or one missed appointment away from crisis. That experience made something very clear to me. Administrative burden is not just paperwork. It is a cognitive overload built into the safety net. When we talk about public benefits, we often focus on eligibility. Does this person qualify? Did they submit the right documents? Did they meet deadlines or did they comply? But eligibility is not the same as access. Eligibility is a legal determination. Access is a lived experience. A family can technically be eligible for support and still lose practical access because the system is too difficult to navigate. Administrative burden research helps us name what is happening. Burden shows up as learning costs, compliance costs, and psychological costs. Learning costs are the work of figuring out what the program requires. Compliance costs are the time, documentation, transportation, technology, appointments, and follow-up that's needed to prove eligibility. Psychological costs are stress, shame, frustration, fear, and loss of control people experience while interacting with government systems. Now add cognitive overload. Cognitive overload happens when people must process more information, rules, deadlines, decisions, emotions, and system demands than they can reasonably manage in the moment. For clients, that may mean understanding a notice, uploading a document, reporting income, attending an appointment, proving an exemption, and figuring out why a case was closed. For frontline workers like myself, cognitive overload looks different. It means interpreting policy, using complex technology systems, locating documents, tracking deadlines, explaining rules, correcting errors, responding to crisis, and making decisions that affect a family's food, healthcare, employment, and stability. This burden is not only on clients, it is also on workers trying to help them. In Santa Clara County, the Department of Employment Benefits Services provides safety net services to almost 450,000 people, nearly 1/4 of all county residents. About 1/4 of clients are children, and about 18% are elderly. Many adults are working poor who rely on public benefits to supplement low wages. At the same time, the county's 2025 eligibility audit reported that the Department of Employment Benefits Services public benefits cases increased by 26.7% from January 2020 to December 2023, while the budgeted eligibility worker positions decreased by 4.3%. The same period included the implementation of CalSAWS, which changed processes and workloads. That is the heart of the problem. More complexity, more need, more rules, more technology, and fewer margins for error. But here is what most people do not realize. The safety net is not failing only because people do not know how to ask for help. Often it is failing because the system is asking people to carry too much. We often think the problem is the client compliance. In reality, the deeper issue is a system design. A notice may be legally accurate and still confusing. A portal may be available and still inaccessible. A deadline may be reasonable on paper and still unrealistic for someone who's working 2 jobs, caring for children, or managing a crisis of health. Research on rule communication shows that the way rules are communicated matters. Bureaucratic language and complex information structures can increase learning, compliance, and psychological costs, even when the content of the rule stays the same. In other words, the rule is not the only burden. The way that we explain the rule can become a burden too. Administrative burden is also an equity issue. Research on racialized burdens show that facially neutral rules can produce unequal effects when they fall hardest on people with fewer resources, less flexibility, less institutional power, or less access to time and information. Families with stable housing, paid leave, English fluency, reliable transportation, digital access, and social capital can often absorb bureaucratic complexity. Families living in poverty usually cannot. That is why this issue connects to my grand challenge, reducing extreme economic inequality. Public benefits are designed to reduce inequality, but when the process of accessing those benefits becomes too complex, the system can reproduce the very instability it was created to prevent. And now, as H.R. 1 changes CalFresh eligibility, documentation, exemptions, work and community engagement requirements, and program costs, the challenges become even more urgent. Each new rule may be understandable in isolation, but together they can create more points where clients can fall off and more points where workers must intervene to repair the system. That is why my question is no longer simply, is the person eligible? My question is, was access designed well enough for that person to succeed? Which brings us to the most important question. What would it look like to design access? I believe we need to move from a maze to a bridge. And I believe human-centered AI and integrated technology can help us do that if we design it carefully. Not AI as a replacement for human judgment, not AI as another gatekeeper, not AI making automatic decisions about people's lives in a black box, but AI as a bridge that helps families understand what is needed, confirms what has been received, identifies what is missing, connects people to resources, supports warm handoffs, and alerts workers before preventable crises occur. A bridge that helps frontline workers spend less time searching disconnected systems and more time solving human problems. A bridge that creates feedback loops so agencies can see where clients and workers are getting stuck and redesign systems with purpose. Code for America describes what this kind of future could look like. Imagine an applicant explaining their situation in plain language. The system identifies which programs might apply, pulls forward documents already submitted, and walks the person through what remains in language they understand. On the agency side, caseworkers receive a more complete and verified case file instead of sorting through a stack of raw documents. That is not science fiction. That is a design choice. A human-centered system could include 5 connected functions. First, clear communication. Notices and messages should explain what is needed, why it matters, when it is due, how to submit it, and whom to contact. AI could help translate dense language into plain language across multiple languages, while humans review accuracy and cultural appropriateness. Second, document confirmation. Clients should not have to wonder whether a document disappeared into the system. They should know when something was received, whether it was readable, and whether anything else is missing. Third, continuity during transitions. When a case transfers between counties, programs, or units, The system should show responsibility, status, and next steps. Families need warm handoffs, not invisible gaps. Fourth, frontline decision support. Workers need dashboards that bring together deadlines, documents, case history, transfer status, missing verifications, and resource options. A worker should not have to search across disconnected systems to understand what is happening. And fifth, purposeful feedback loops. Leadership should be able to see repeated barriers, which notices cause repeat calls, which documents are hardest to submit, which transfers create gaps, which workloads produce delays, and which communities experience the most burden. Feedback without redesign becomes frustration. Data without action becomes surveillance. Technology without humanity becomes another barrier. So the answer is not simply to add AI. The answer is to design AI with values: privacy, fairness, transparency, auditability, human review, and lived experience feedback. The goal is not to automate people out of public service. The goal is to remove unnecessary burdens so public servants have more time for judgment, empathy, and problem solving. That is Bridge. I want to return to the child in my care. He did not need a new program. He needed the existing system to work during a transition. That is what so many families need. They need systems that remember them between steps, systems that communicate clearly, systems that confirm receipt, systems that carry information forward, systems that support workers, systems that protect continuity before crisis happens. The future of the safety net is not predetermined. Administrative burden is not inevitable. Cognitive overload is not inevitable. Disconnected systems are not inevitable. They are design choices. And if they are design choices, they can be redesigned. So today, I am asking public agencies, social workers, technology leaders, policymakers, and community partners to treat access as something we must design, not something we can assume. Before adding a new rule, form, notice, portal, or verification step, ask, what cognitive load does this create? Who carries it? How could technology reduce it without removing humanity? Before measuring success only by how many people qualify, ask whether eligible families can actually keep support. Before calling a system efficient, ask whether it works for the client and workers who carry it every day. The safety net should not be a maze that families have to survive. It should be a bridge that helps them cross from crisis to stability. Eligibility is not enough. Access must be designed. Thank you.